It's official. The Max Scherzer era in Texas has begun.
You are Locked On MLB. Your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, then how do I have a lower third where I'm called Sully? I'm an Emmy-nominated television producer who's been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now. It's my fifth full season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. But if you're watching, you will see that this is a crossover. And today we are crossing over. And trust me, I have no intention of messing with Texas, which is why we are not having a New York Rangers crossover. We're having a Texas Ranger crossover with the one, the only. What is your name, please?
Bryce Patrick.
And I will remind you that you're under oath. This is a congressional hearing we're having right here. He has been indicted and has been brought to the Locked On MLB studios. Don't get topical, Sully. I am going to get topical because the big news that they'll be talking about in history for generations to come was the first start of Max Scherzer as a member of the Texas Rangers. Hey, follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. We had a lot of people, by the way. I actually wasn't prepared to talk about this, but we had a bunch of people who were really, really close in getting the trivia question. The question was, which pitcher has the most career wins while playing for only one National League team? Now, the answer should have been Christy Mathewson, except for the fact he pitched one game for the Cincinnati Reds and therefore became ineligible for this discussion. So that was a great guess, Amy Green. Phenomenal guess. Not correct. A couple of people picked Don Drysdale, another terrific guest. Wrong. We had Bob Gibson was a guest who was 3 wins off. It was actually Carl Hubble, who had 253 wins, all with the New York Giants. Oh, by the way, I got to do a mea culpa. Bryce Patrick, please make note that when I'm wrong, I will admit that I'm wrong. I had done a trivia question where I said what was the only postseason series to end with an RBI single from the visiting team, and no one had gotten it. And I put it down, and the fact of the matter, and I said that it was the end of the 2003 Division Series when Jeffrey Hammonds got an RBI single, but the tying run was thrown out the plate when JT Snow tried to score. Court Stell was quick to correct me. This goes to show you my memory was wrong. It was not an RBI hit. It was, I thought my memory was the bases were loaded and one run came in and Snow was trying to score as the tying run and he was thrown out at home plate. My memory was wrong.
Wow.
And I'll admit that. I got that detail wrong. It remains the only postseason series to ever end with a base hit by the visiting team. So my trivia question wasn't completely wrong, but I was calling it an RBI base hit, and that was my memory being wrong. So I you know what? I try to do these trivia questions mostly from memory, and I had such a clear memory because that was the day I got married. So that's what I remember about that day. That and Trot Nixon hit a walk-off home run, and I got married.
You remember the important things.
Yeah, you got it. But no, I mea culpa. I got that detail wrong with my own trivia question. So my bad. I hope you all can find it in your heart to forgive me. All right, enough with that. Enough with cleaning house. Bryce Patrick is here. Bryce, you are the host of Locked On Rangers, have been for a little bit. And the Rangers had an interesting game today. Their new toy was brought out to be played with in Texas. This was the Texas Ranger debut of Max Scherzer. And it didn't start off that well.
No, it didn't start off well. And honestly, a lot of debuts for big Texas Rangers pitchers have gone very poorly. And this was probably the best one of any big name pitcher coming to the Rangers in a long time. A friend of mine, Chris Fitz on Twitter, tweeted this out. Of all these different Rangers debuts, there was Gaylord Perry, who gave up 5 runs in 6 innings pitched against the Cleveland team that traded him. Nolan Ryan, 5 innings, 4 runs, 3 walks. Cliff Lee, 9 innings, 6 runs in a complete game loss to the AL worst Orioles back in 2010. Yu Darvish, under 6 innings, 5 runs, 4 walks. Cole Hamels, 5 runs in 7 innings. Corey Kluber, 1 inning ever. Jacob deGrom, 3 2/3 innings and 5 runs on opening day. So it has not been a lot of success for these big name pitchers coming in. So 6 innings, 3 earned runs. It's pretty good for this list.
But let's get down to brass tacks. The Rangers were down 3 runs before they even came to bat. You must have been a little nervous when he got off to the, let's be kind and call it a tiny bit of a rough start there in the first.
Yeah, I was a little worried, but it was mostly a lot of batted ball, bad luck, not any hard hit balls. I mean, the single was 62 miles an hour. Both of them were under 65 miles an hour off the bat from Tim Anderson and Andrew Benintendi. I mean, he was still getting the strikeouts. The walks weren't great. Walking in a run in your first inning with your team is never ideal, but it wasn't something where I'm like, oh no, here we go again. Because the thing with Scherzer is the home run ball and the hard hit balls. And there were only 3 hard hit balls against him all day. And I think only one of those was hit, maybe 2 of them, but they were both singles. So, I mean, it wasn't really a case of, oh, wow, here's the Scherzer that's had issues, with the Mets all year. And he was excellent, literally just last year. And I find it really funny that there were a lot of Mets fans that I saw on Twitter, including Locked On Mets host Ryan Finkelstein, having a little chuckle at Max Scherzer when he ends up with a quality start while the Mets are getting swept by the Royals. Maybe mind your own business, Mets fans.
Mets losing to the Royals, that has a familiar ring to it. I'm not sure why that reminds me of something. Yeah, I mean, look in the end, I think it was more of a frustrating first inning than anything else. It was like, it was a lot of, things going the White Sox way. It certainly helped matters for the Rangers that Toussaint, the starter for the Chicago White Sox, had a very hard time throwing strikes. And a couple of times said, well, I better throw a strike here. And he would throw one like right down the middle of the plate for Marcus Semien, or right down the middle of the plate for who was the other? Mitch Garver. Thank you. I couldn't remember. And you take a look and after that rough first inning and not a great second inning, but nothing that bad happened. It was 1-2-3 inning, 1-2-3. In the end, he struck out 9 batters in 6 innings.
Yeah.
And didn't let up a run after the first. And lest we forget, this is a contending team with bats. So he pitched well enough to win. And, Scherzer is there to pitch in October. That's his job. And in the regular season at this point, in my humble opinion, everything's binary. Did you win? Yes, fine. I don't care how you won. We're in the last third of the season. You don't get style points. There's a half game separates, Houston from Texas at this point. And so at this point, you can't really.
For the next few hours, at least, it's a full game.
Yeah, but they're going to. Astros are going to play the Yankees, so we know what is going to happen there.
Unfortunately, Garrett Cole is not on the hill.
Yeah, and if Garrett Cole was pitching for the Astros, they wouldn't pitch him in Game 7. So that's the deal there. But you must feel good about the fact that the offense was able to, dust off what was dust them off of any sort of bumps and bruises they may have in the first inning or two.
Yeah, it definitely was nice to see. It was an 8-pitch first inning for Touki Toussaint, who looked really good in the first inning, and overall was fairly solid. It was honestly.
But he lost his control. He was down 0. He was down 1-0 or 2-0 or 2-1 to so many batters, and the home runs he let up were because I'm down 2-0, 2-1. I got to throw a strike here, and you have a smart player like Marcus Semien who knows that. And by the way, I've said this on a previous podcast. Someday Marcus Semien is going to be a major league manager, and he just knew, okay, here it comes, and it was one of those, you knew it was gone the minute it left his fingers. He didn't have to swing. Like, well, okay, so now it's a tie game.
Yeah, and Marcus Semien has been absolutely on fire since the All-Star break. An OPS of 985 and on base, just 3 points shy of 400, hitting over 320. I mean, the guy has just been lighting it up as of late, and 6 home runs. The home run ball has not been really there for him as much in the first half as we saw kind of him go on a stretch last year. I mean, the first couple months were really rough for him, but the Rangers' top 3 of their order, I mean, Corey Seager has been unfathomably hot literally all season when he's been on the field. Marcus Semien is on fire right now, and Nathaniel Lowe is kind of finding his form. Last year, the reason that he won the Silver Slugger at first base over all those other good hitting first basemen is because he had an OPS north of 1,000 in 2 different months after the All-Star break. So, I mean, he's also finding that form as well. So this Rangers lineup, even though the bottom third, maybe even the middle third, a little bit is having some issues. Josh Young has had some struggles, even though he's had multi-hit games in the last couple. Before that, it had been a bit of a slog. Garver seems to be finding his way. When he gets hot, he hits those homers and bunches. Ezekiel Duran, it'd been rough for him, and Leo Taveras as well down at the bottom of the order. But if your 8 and 9 hitters are struggling in your top 3 and your number 6, and without Jonah Heim, it's a little bit harder for this offense to get going, but still, this is still one of the best offenses in all baseball. And I don't think it was nearly as much smoke and mirrors as we were seeing the Rays offense was for those first 2 months.
I think what you're saying is the Rangers have assembled the best parts to move forward and be a winning team. Is that the case?
I think that's the case. And if you're
but wait, before you say anything, I'm sorry, you were saying?
I was saying that this episode is sponsored by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it is all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right, just like a Max Scherzer into your rotation if you are the Texas Rangers. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know how the part will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
That was flawless.
Thank you.
That wasn't. All right. Hey, okay, that was Scherzer's debut, but let's talk about the fact that the Rangers were very aggressive in the trade deadline. They traded away some good young players, but unlike Baltimore, they had a sense of urgency, realizing, hey, wait a minute. The landscape has been placed in front of us in a way that a pennant is possible. So let's, 2 or 3 years down the line, you may regret trading Ronald Acuna's brother, but not if it means bringing in Scherzer, not if it means finally making nobody, especially your pal Sully, mention Nelson Cruz leaping to try to catch a ball over his head hit by David Freese.
I don't know what you're talking about. In my reality that I live in, he was actually subbed out defensively by Ryan Washington. A really brilliant move by a competent manager.
Yeah. Or maybe Lance Berkman popped up. I don't know in the 10th inning. Either way,
don't even say the name Lance Berkman to me. I can't. That's just cruel.
Susquehanna hats. But here's the deal: a victory, a championship wipes out all the past. It wipes out all the bad moments, are instantly erased. And the Rangers know that. And the Rangers also know that the Astros they're still a very good team, but they're more vulnerable. They're not the can't miss team that they may have looked like the last couple of years going into the postseason. In other words, there's an opening here, and they took it. So tell me your thoughts about the deals. Obviously, Scherzer got the most attention, but it wasn't the only deal they made to fortify this team.
Yeah, and I thought that, especially when we were talking about the Orioles, I thought they'd be much more aggressive at the deadline than Jack Flaherty. I think he is in the middle of his first start, and he's doing okay. But the Orioles had a really good team and an obvious need in pitching. And when you look at the Jordan Montgomery trade, that's the one where I think, really? That's what it took? Nobody else could beat that. And it wasn't just Jordan Montgomery. It was Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton, who is a solid bullpen arm who's got really great spin rate and a righty just like the Rangers needed. And I thought, okay, that's a deal that I don't feel bad about. I mean, I really like those two prospects. I really do like them. I think Thomas Sajazi is going to be a perfect Cardinal. I mean, I feel like every Cardinals position player is going to play a million different infield positions. He's going to be the most beloved teammate by anybody. Rave reviews about how good a teammate is. He's going to hit 300. He's got an on base of 350, a slugging of 450, and he's going to be solid for several years, probably. Maybe that's the best version of him. Takeo Roby is a guy who's got a lot of potential for swing and miss stuff. He's 21 years old in Double-A. He's very advanced. He's been hit around pretty hard this year, but I think that the Rangers showing confidence in him to be at that level is definitely a sign that, you know, he is better than those numbers look, and he has been hurt for a decent chunk of this year. And the Rangers haven't been able to develop pitching, and maybe he's the starting pitcher that they could have never been able to develop. But also, Luisangel Acuna, I really love his game, but he is a middle infielder. The Rangers have their middle infield locked up for the next 7 years, six years after this at minimum. And that's just Marcus Semien. And he's probably not playing center field because Leody Taveras is pretty good out there. And if it's not Leody Taveras, then it's going to be Evan Carter. And if it's not Evan Carter, then eventually it's going to be Wyatt Langford, their first round pick, who is already in high A and raking. He had a triple in his very first at bat in full season ball, which is a lot of fun, but still, it's not a price that I'm losing any sleep over. And if this is what it took, then like, I don't know. I feel like if this is the market, then the Rangers did a great job because they've got a very deep farm system. And this is why you have a deep farm system. This is the whole point. This is, or I guess half the point, is to develop your own good players, which Rangers have done. They have a lot of good young players right now in Josh Young, Leody Taveras, Ezekiel Duran, and well, Jonah Hyman and you know, and Adolis Garcia and Nathaniel Lowe, like, kind of count. You kind of stole them at the very end from other teams. But like, this is why you do it. They're not all going to work out. Look at those prospects the Rangers gave up in the Cole Hamels trade. I think there were 3 different top 100 guys. There was Jake Thompson. There was Jorge Alfaro. There was Nick Williams. Do you know almost anything about any of those guys? So,
no.
Do you remember anything?
No. And
I love those guys. And Jorge Alfaro is somehow like spent time in the big leagues for, I don't know, 6-7 years.
Yeah, he's had a major league career, but certainly was
but not anywhere near
worth getting Cole Hamels in a stretch run.
He won them 2 AL West titles,
right,
because of that, and they also got Jake Diekman in that deal as well. So
we made that exact point on yesterday's show with Lindsey Crosby when we were trashing the Orioles, saying you have more prospects than you have spots on the major league roster.
Exactly.
And also making the point that I made with you, you don't always know when you're going to see the seas part and a lane, such a clear lane to get to the World Series. And the Orioles had who are obviously having a wonderful regular season, but they have a glaring need, which is quality frontline starting pitching. They've got the back end of the bullpen down. What they needed Verlander, or they needed Montgomery. I thought because they have so many great prospects, I thought, like, do you know what? They're going to get Verlander. To me, that was he would have been, all right, we have a Hall of Fame, the guy who won the Cy Young Award last year, to come in and say, hey, fellas, get behind me. And instead they got, Flaherty's he would be a nice other piece. You got Verlander and Flaherty. Okay, that makes sense. But Flaherty is your Christmas morning?
The Rangers had a better rotation before the trade deadline than the Orioles, and they added 2 starting pitchers. That should say how urgently the Rangers have. Like, I mean, I think that the Astros are probably going to be much better down the stretch than the Rays are, and I'm, rightly terrified. I do want to take issue with one comment you had earlier this week, where you said when the Astros passed the Rangers in the division. I don't know about when. If maybe even there's a more than likely chance, but you got me.
Someone taking the bait. There's the hook of the worm. Bryce going bloop bloop. Right in there.
It's been so long since my team was actually good. I forgot what it was like to defend them. And when there was obvious bait, I'm just a little innocent little fish. But yeah. I mean, you also don't know when your window is going to shut. You have no idea. And the Rangers 2015-2016 team is the exact reason why I think this team is so aggressive right now. The Rangers look like they were set to contend for a long time. They had a young core. They had Nomar Mazara. They had Joey Gallo. They had Rougned Odor. They still had Elvis Andrus in his prime. They still had several more years of Adrian Beltre. And, it looked like okay. And we got some young pitchers in Chichi Gonzalez and some other guys that were coming up. And you still had more years of Yu Darvish. You had him through 2017. You had Cole Hamels through, I believe, was under contract through 2018, which it ended up. I don't even want to talk about how all that ended because Cole Hamels did a good service while he was there. But then Prince Fielder, just out of nowhere, career-ending injury. Joey Gallo, the only prospect of that whole group that ended up working out. Nomar Mazara was like the most surefire can't miss prospect, was a solid major league right fielder for like 3 years and just never, ever got any better. He was a solid major league right fielder at age 20, and then it just didn't happen. And Rougned Odor, we all saw what happened with him. So it's like, you don't know how long this window is going to be open. They're not, outside of the Braves this year, there's not any team in the AL that's like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest team ever. It looked like the Rays for the first 2 months, and then it didn't. And the Orioles are a really good team, and the Rangers are a pretty good team, and the Astros are a pretty good team, and the Twins will participate in the postseason.
For a couple of days.
Yeah, they will participate. They will show up, and that's better than the Rangers have done for the past 6-7 years. But still, you got to get in the dance, and you got to be aggressive. Give yourself a chance. And if that's all it costs, and the Orioles have a much better system than the Rangers, I don't know what you're doing. Like, I know you want to be like, conservative. That's kind of their whole front office's, MO. But still, at a certain point, you got to cash in those chips. I think that maybe I was hearing that Dylan Cease's asking price was going to be Jackson Holiday. I don't blame them for not pulling the trigger on that. But for a deal like Jordan Montgomery or for a Lance Lynn or for, I don't know, even Aaron Savali, I think is a move that they could have done and maybe should have done. I don't think he's their frontline guy, but still, I'm surprised more teams didn't do more. Even the Astros, who were aggressive in getting Verlander, it cost a pretty penny. But still, probably their last blue chip prospect they have in their system. Although, of course, they'll turn out some more because, unfortunately, the Astros are very good at doing a lot of things, which much to my chagrin. But still.
Threw an ad bumper right at you. Had to go to a break. Yeah, we're going to see an American League West showdown. Pretty much. I mean, I think the Angels. I said the Angels had to do one of two things: either trade Ohtani or re-sign him. You find out what's the number. Give us the number that will take you to re-sign, and whatever that number is, sign him. If he says no, I want to hit free agency, then you trade him. They did the exact worst thing, which was to say we're going to go for it, but we don't have him re-signed, and if this doesn't work, then not only have we not re-signed him, and we've traded away some good young players to Chicago. I mean, I can't. I mean, I get the emotional. We're going to go for it, but it's going to be. Get back to me in November about how smart that was. The Astros obviously pulled off the deal for Verlander, and I have tremendous trust in them. I know you don't like that. I'm not an Astro fan. But I mean, I have a lot of trust in them.
They're a good team. They've been good for a long time, and it's the bane of my existence that I have to admit it because there's no way around it.
And so by the way, let's take a quick peek at some of the other games that are going on here on Thursday afternoon. As of this recording, Baltimore is a 3-1 lead over the Toronto Blue Jays. Baltimore is going to win 90 in the high 90s and be one of those teams that could be bumped out in the division series. How'd they do that? They won 98 games. Yes, because look at who their starting pitchers are, and they're going to be going up against other teams' best starting pitchers. By the way, I have very little trust in the Blue Jays right now. I mean, I know the Red Sox. I barely have any trust in the Red Sox right now. But the fact that if Baltimore wins this game, the Red Sox will only be one game back in the loss column in August is a freaking miracle. The other games that ended today, the Royals absolutely tomahawked the Mets. Bobby Witt Jr. By the way, he had his ninth home run. I think it's his 19th home run, I meant to say. I think it's his ninth home run in the last week. It seems every other day I look up and see what the highlights. It's Bobby Witt Jr. If the Royals turn...
Shout out to the local kid, Bobby Witt Jr. of Colleyville Heritage fame.
Well, there you go. I was going to ask you if he was of Colleyville Heritage. Poor Marlins, man. They got doubled up by Philadelphia. Another pretty well-pitched game, but and another home run by Brian De La Cruz. Brandon Marsh got the big 2-run single. The Phillies, by the way, very quietly have got themselves in, they're back one of the wild card teams. The whole year they've seemed like they've been underachieving, and yet they finished last year the third wild card team. As of this recording, they're the second wild card team. Milwaukee.
Those fish come to town to play the Rangers, so glad they're on a skid, and hopefully the Rangers can extend that skid.
It could help matters for the Marlins that the Brewers don't know what they're doing. The Brewers have all but gifted. I mean, the Reds have not played particularly well, but the Brewers have lost 7 of their last 10 games. The game they lost yesterday was so stupid, where they threw the ball away and 2 runs came in. The Brewers are playing so badly, they're letting the Cubs back in it. Because as of just keep this in mind, as of this recording, 2 games in the loss column separate first place Cincinnati and third place Chicago in the National League Central.
God, I wish the Rangers were the National League Central. They wouldn't have had to do a darn thing to walk into October.
If the Rangers were in the American League Central, they'd be up by 8 games right now. Because
they made the Twins sell.
Because Minnesota has dropped 6 of their last 10 and lost 0 games in the standings. Because the Cleveland Guardians have said, and by the way, I'm going to be doing the next show that I'm going to be doing. We're going to be talking Guardians and American League Central, so keep an eye out for that. And right now, I'm in the Bay Area right now. I'm in the Bay Area for a few more days before I head back to the luxurious Locked On MLB studios in Pasadena, California, overlooking the historic Rose Bowl. So please, by all means, stop by my house. As of this recording, the Giants are up 1-0 against Arizona on the Lamont Wade homer. We'll see what happens at the end of that game. But yeah, we're for all these races that are super tight, a game here, a game there, you cannot afford to lose any dumb games. You're gonna lose a game every once in a while. You're gonna lose about 3 games.
Several dumb games to the Astros. 2 1-run losses in that series where the Rangers clearly outplayed them in Houston, but they lost 2 out of 3. Same with that absolute barn burner the last game they played before that, when Martin Perez got lit up and the Rangers came back from 8 runs down and then still could not take the win, even though they took the lead after being down. I would believe it was 10-2 at one point.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I actually wasn't watching that game, but I kept seeing the highlights of it, or I kept seeing the updates of it on the ticker on my phone. And I went, oh boy, well, Bryce must be mad about that. And I'm going to do something. I'm being halfway decent father. Oh, by the way, whoa, what? They came back? Those are the wildest games, are the ones that you just emotional. Like, it happens for me a bunch of times with the Red Sox. Well, I'm not going to watch that game. That game's up. Then you turned it on to like the most improbable 9th inning rally in Fenway. Oh my God. Okay. Well, here we go. All right. Well, before we say goodbye to Bryce Patrick, we're going to throw out today's trivia question, which I made sure I got right. Which Rangers pitcher, and you can't answer this, Bryce, you probably know the answer. Which Rangers pitcher threw the complete game victory for their first ever postseason win? The first postseason win in Rangers history was a complete game victory by which pitcher? Who was it? Think of all the great pitchers in the history of the Rangers. Some of them are in the Hall of Fame. Some of them are Hall of Fame bound. So which pitcher threw the complete game victory for the first ever postseason victory in the Texas Rangers history? There you go. That's my trivia question, and I did double check it. I didn't screw it up like that other one. Bryce Patrick, who's at Bryce Patrick on Twitter. Is that what it's still called now? On X.
It's called Twitter by everybody who
Yeah, so
means
Twitter.
something.
And we still have the little birds here because we don't want to confuse people.
We're still
Um,
tripping.
and where can they find your show?
You can find Locked On Rangers wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, creeping up towards hopefully hitting 3,000 by the time the Rangers are surely in the postseason as AL West champs over those stinking Houston Astros.
Any last thoughts before we say toodaloo?
Well, this Max Scherzer trade, not just for this year, it is for next year. And thinking about a postseason rotation next year with Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, and Max Scherzer as a number 3, oh boy, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I hope Nathan Eovaldi, one of my favorite pitchers in baseball, is healthy by the time the season rounds up, because he's someone you want in your corner in a postseason situation. I can tell you that right here and also right now. Talking about Max Scherzer's debut with the Texas Rangers and the possible fate of the American League West, this has been a Locked On MLB, Locked On Rangers crossover. He's Bryce Patrick. I'm Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.